Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah, wa salatu salam ala Rasulullah. We continue reading from Imam Al-Ghazali's Jawahir al-Qur'an al-Durr, the jewels of the Quran and its pairs. We have reached the very last selection of that Imam Al-Ghazali selected from the verses of Surah Yunus, alayhi salam. The last selection, last pairs, if you will, ended with verse 58. This selection begins with 62, and in between there is an important it's a reminder. This is not the in fact the in Surah Al-An'am there are details, verses 139 to 137 to 139, but let's read 59 first and then move to 62 inshallah. 59 now. قل أرأيتم ما أنزل الله لكم من رزق فجعلتم منه حراما وحلالا قل الله أذن لكم أم على الله تفترون. Ask, say to the pagans, of course, to the so it asks the Prophet ﷺ to challenge the pagans, the polytheists, the mushrikun of Mecca and beyond. Have you seen that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which Allah has sent down for you as a provision, which you have made some lawful and some unlawful? Say, has Allah given you authorization, or are you fabricating lies against Allah? Let's go to Surah Al-An'am and read and see what they have done. They said, وقالوا هذه أنعام وحرث حجر لا يطعمها إلا من نشاء بزعمهم وأنعام حرمت ظهورها وأنعام لا يذكر اسم الله عليها افتراء عليه سيجزيهم بما كانوا يفترون. They say these cattle and crops are reserved. None may eat them except those we permit. So they claim some other cattle are exempted from labor and others are not slaughtered in Allah's name, falsely attributing lies to Him. He will repay them for their lies. They also say, وقالوا ما في بطون هذه الأنعام خالصة لذكورنا ومحرم على أزواجنا وإن يكن ميتة فهم فيه شركاء سيجزيهم وصفهم إنه حكيم عليم. They also say, the offspring of this cattle is reserved for our males and forbidden to our females, but if it is stillborn, they may all share it. He will repay them for their falsehood. Surely He is all wise. This is verse 139. Where did they come up with all this? This is exactly the meaning, going back now to Surah Yunus. This is the meaning of فَجَعَلْتُ مِنْهُ حَرَامًا وَحَلَالًا. You have basically made part lawful and part unlawful. It's the same with the people of the book. Certain things that the Jews made unlawful and certain things the Christians made lawful. I'm just giving a couple of examples. The story that, of course, this is the story, of course, it cannot be the true, but it's there in the Old Testament. Jacob, Yaqub alayhi salam, he wrestles with God Some people are not comfortable with saying that he wrestled with God. They say no, he wrestled with an angel. But that's really still unbelievable because you have no strength whatsoever against an angel. You simply don't. At any rate, Yaqub alayhi salam, Prophet Jacob, the son of Ishaq, son of Isaac, son of Abraham, alayhim salam, he wrestles with God. It is still night, and Yaqub alayhi salam obviously is holding God. He cannot really free himself. And then God asks him to release him because it's going to be daybreak, and that'll be embarrassing before people. And he tells him, I will not release you, I will not free you unless you bless me. And God blesses Jacob, and this is how he becomes Israel. But during the wrestling, God hits Jacob on his the upper part of his thigh, and then the text says, and from that moment, the children of Israel do not eat the legs, the thighs. There's no connection. First of all, the story cannot be true, and there is no prohibition. God did not prohibit the hind legs. This is why we'll talk about the meat trucks really. For as often as I can remember, in East Jerusalem, the meat truck brings hind legs to East Jerusalem, front legs to West Jerusalem, and hind legs to East Jerusalem. So they have prohibited something that is lawful. With the Christians, Jesus Christ, peace upon him, did not eat pork. There are other things, of course, that he did. He was circumcised. He prostrated himself. He worshipped Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. At any rate, regarding food, he did not eat pork. So, Judaism before, you talk about the Jewish law, the halakha, you talk about Islam, the Sharia, and the word halakha and Sharia, etymologically, they are identical. So, pork is prohibited before, pork is prohibited after, and in between, you have those who permitted eating pork. But in this case, so I'm extending the argument in verse 59. Paving the way, verse 61, before the selection that we have, 62 to 65. There's no activity you may be engaged in, addressing the Prophet ﷺ, or portion of the Qur'an you may be reciting, nor any deed you all may be doing, except that we are witness over you while doing it. Not even an atom's weight is hidden from your Lord. Not even an atom's weight is hidden from your Lord on earth or in heaven, nor anything smaller or larger than that, but is written in a perfect record. Everything is on record. Everyone will have a record of his or her deeds, of course, in this life. Every single deed. You are held responsible for all the things that you have done as an adult. You'll be rewarded for the things if they were sincerely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And hopefully with tawheed, with true belief in the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sins will be forgiven. But there is a record of everything. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows when a black ant walks on a solid rock in a dark night, moonless. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is fully knowledgeable of the movement of the ant. This is why it's an advice that is not meant. It is meant as a caution. It is meant as a reminder, as in this particular verse. People who would like to commit a sin, they are advised to commit a sin in a place where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not be able to see them, which is impossible. Remember, nothing in the universe, except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is knowledgeable about that. Not an atom's weight on earth or in heaven, except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows about it. You cannot be in a place and do something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not know. We are accompanied by angels all the time. So, if you become conscientious of this, of the meaning in this verse, and do not be sad, do not panic, do not freak out. Just try to be amongst the friends of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the close servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to be amongst the God conscientious. There will certainly be no fear for the close servants of Allah, nor will they grieve. ألا إن أولياء الله لا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون. On the meaning of the friends of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the awliya, everyone who has piety is amongst the awliya. They will have no fear, لا خوف عليهم, in terms of what awaits them in the hereafter. We talk about there are unimaginable punishments for those who are destined to hellfire, but those friends of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those pious people, God conscientious, they should not fear. وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ, they will not be sad for that which they leave behind in this world. There's yet another beautiful spiritual interpretation of the awliya. We speak about the awliya Allah. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu, and Ibn Abbas and others from amongst the early Muslim community. They said that awliyaullah, the friends of Allah, are those whom, if they are seen, people will remember the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. أولياء الله الذين إذا رؤوا ذكر الله. Once you see them, you remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you see one of those, Imam Ghazali called them the people of the heart, أرباب القلوب, the lords of the hearts, those who possess cleansed, purified spiritual hearts. If you see them, definitely you remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's something called free association. One leads to the other. Conditional thinking. This is an experiment that Pavlov did. I'm not going to go into details, but it's really associating one phenomenon with another. If you see a carpenter that you know, you will not remember medicine. If you see your family physician, you will not remember football. If you see one of the football players, you will not remember Islamic law. There are certain people who remind you. There are people that when you see them, you remember their major activity, their major some people are known for doing stand-up comedy. They cannot be your spiritual guides. Usually not. Politicians who you will definitely world leaders, presidents in very powerful places. They use foul language. They degrade women. They lie systematically. If anything, you start associating that position with lowly and dangerous behavior. But not definitely, they will not remind you of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the awliya, once you see them, you will remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is really the case. The meaning of this statement has been narrated in a hadith. There is a hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ said that amongst the servants of Allah are servants whom the prophets and the martyrs يغبطهم الأنبياء والشهداء. This is not envy, definitely not. It cannot be the case, but the prophets and the martyrs will notice the position of those servants. They are positive, so they don't have no ill wishes towards them of any kind. There's no negative energy towards them. They are happy for them, but they might wish to have the same, and the companions of the Prophet ﷺ asked him, O Messenger of Allah, tell us who are these so that we might love them. He said, they are people who love each other for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where there is no money, so they have no trade relations, no business relations, nothing commercial, no worldly interests. That's the meaning. Wala ansab, they are not relative. They are not relative. So the only relation between them is that they love each other for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Their faces will radiate light. And they will be on pulpits of light, meaning on the day of judgment. They will not be afraid when people are afraid. Remember, this is right before being judged, held accountable on the day of judgment, and before the people are separated into paradise and hellfire. So they are not afraid when people are afraid, and they will not be sad when people are sad. And then the Prophet ﷺ recited this particular verse, verse 62, ألا إن أولياء الله لا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون. They are those who are faithful and are mindful of Him, of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of course. They are believers, they are faithful, they are believers, and they are mindful, they are God conscientious. To them, for them, is good news in this life and hereafter. In this life, له البشرى في الحياة الدنيا وفي الآخرة. In this life, they will have good news. There's a hadith that says that true vision is one part of 46 parts of prophecy. And there are other numbers that are mentioned, but the one that you have 44, you have 70, but the one that I recall is, and here it is, عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال لهم البشرى في الحياة الدنيا الرؤيا الصالحة يبشرها المؤمن جزء من 46 جزء من نبوة 46 one portion 1 over 46 part of the 1 part over 146 part of prophecy. So they might see something that will create. They will see their place in paradise, but they will see something beautiful. Remember in elsewhere in the Qur'an, إن الذين قالوا ربنا الله ثم استقاموا تنزل عليهم الملائكة ألا تخافوا ولا تحزنوا وأبشروا بالجنة التي كنتم توعدون نحن أولياؤكم في الحياة الدنيا وفي الآخرة ولكم فيها ما تشتهي أنفسكم ولكم فيها ما تدعون نزلا من غفور رحيم. لهم البشرى في الحياة الدنيا وفي الآخرة. For them is good news in this worldly life and the hereafter. لا تبديل لكلمات الله. There is no change in the promise of Allah. That is truly the ultimate triumph لا تبديل كلمة لا، ذلك هو الفوز العظيم. ولا يحزنك قولهم إن العزة لله جميعا هو السميع العليم. Do not let their words grieve you. Addressing the Prophet ﷺ, we also should not be grieved by what the Islamophobes say. It's against them. It should not really touch. We should not allow them to touch our hearts by their Islamophobic statements, movies, caricatures. They have lost it. It's not because of their position vis-a-vis Islam. They have lost it. As they are simply, it's like a whirlwind spiraling really down to the abyss, if you will, where every decent thing that was the norm for thousands of years, they have messed up. Almost everything. Do not let their words grieve you. Surely all honor and power belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is the all-hearing, all-knowing. So, in al-izzat lahi jami'a, let's remember that قل اللهم مالك الملك تؤتي الملك من تشاء وتعز من تشاء وتذل من تشاء بيدك الخير إنك على كل شيء قدير. It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who honors. This is the last selection from Surah Yunus. We do have a couple of more themes before the end of the surah. Quickly, I will share with you. It's verses 71 to 73. We talk about Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam, the ark and the flood. The importance here, let's remember that in Western scholarship, pretty much within the Judeo-Christian tradition, there are those who say that the story of the flood in the Old Testament is copied from the Epic of Gilgamesh, the oldest known written documented epic from Iraq. At any rate, those who say it's really copied, influenced by the Epic of Gilgamesh, the flood in the Epic of Gilgamesh, they also say that the Qur'an picked up the theme from the Old Testament, and the interpretation should be rather simple. There was a flood. The earth was covered with water, and one should simply remember that the people who were on the ark, they also had their own story other than revelation. They had a story, and it was transferred from one generation to the other. Or simply there was another local flood around the Euphrates and the Tigris in Iraq. That could be also the case, other than the flood with Prophet Nuh alayhi salam. The other theme is Prophets Moses and Aaron, Musa and Harun alayhi salam, with the Pharaoh. Ultimately, Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam led along with Sayyidina Harun, they led the children of Israel across the body of water, the sea, if you will. Sayyidina Musa split the water with his staff. He was followed by the Pharaoh and his soldiers. And when the children of Israel were out of harm way, the water overwhelmed the Pharaoh and his soldiers, and they drowned. So in both cases, the flood of Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam and the body of water, the water drowned the non-believers. People do not know think about the omnipotence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No one knows the soldiers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not only human beings. These forces that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created in nature, but again, it is the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for none of the prophets performed anything except that it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, فَبِإِذْنِ they had no power of their own. Inshallah, in the next session we'll begin with Surah Hud. Until then, alayhi salam, until then, subhanakallah wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.